I mean, it is very difficult to become an esports athlete. I tell people one of my favorite things is, okay, how many people here know Microsoft Excel? And everyone in the room raises their hand. I said, okay, keep your hand up if you know more than 10 shortcut keys. And then maybe half, the room puts their hands down. And then I say, how many of you who have your hands up think you can do more than 60 shortcut keys in a minute? And no one leaves their hand up. And I say to people, your average pro StarCraft 2 player, which is a video game played on a keyboard and mouse, an average pro player can average anywhere between 250 to 300 moves a minute. Okay, that's an incredibly gifted and talented individual. Great, well, thank you for having me. My name is Carlos Alamorang. I'm the CEO of One Esports. I joined Group One Holdings as CEO about 18 months ago to lead the esports business. Before that, I was the chief business officer of a company called Battlefy, which is the world's largest online esports competition platform. And when I joined them 5 years ago, we were serving maybe 10,000 players. And by the time I left, we had scaled to the business to 65 million players. And I mention that not only because it talks a little bit about how fast esports has grown in the last handful of years. But I also learned a very important lesson, which will be a theme that we'll talk a little bit more about as we go along here, which is the big lesson is the power of the community and the power of the grassroots in esports and how important it is to win their hearts and minds. The quick one-liner on One Esports is, One Esports is a full content stack for esports, meaning we have events. We have one of the biggest esports news sites in the world. Our social media is scaled. We have our own studio that does long form and streaming content. And we also have our own in-house data team as well. So when we work with brands or we work with game developers, we really bring a complete one-stop shop solution, turnkey solution for them to engage and connect with the esports community. I spend half of my time kind of explaining that esports is different than sports, but then I also spend the other half of my time just saying esports is just sports. And if you ask someone, a football fan, why did they love Man U, or why did they love Real Madrid, or why did they love the Yankees or the New York Giants? I mean, it's really the same thing, why someone would be a fan of Evil Geniuses or OG or Team Secret or Team Liquid. I do think, though, that esports, from a business perspective, I think is the future of sports and entertainment. And there's, I think, several reasons why I would argue this. The first is, if you really think about it, it's a very rare moment in history where someone can be involved in the birth of a sport and that birth is global. Typically, sports are born in a country or regionally, right? Tennis was born in the United Kingdom, baseball in the United States, basketball in the United States, and then it flourishes. But esports is very different. Esports immediately started being global. And then it was born in the world of not of broadcast TV or cable TV. It was born in the world of the internet, of streaming, where now athletes and talent can interact almost on a daily basis with their fans. So, as I said to you, our mission is to share and celebrate the stories of esports heroes. And we define esports hero very broadly. Obviously, esports heroes can represent the top 0.001% of players, but they also represent that player who is on their own personal journey to improve. How does the meta change with the new patch? What champions or heroes have been nerfed or buffed? How to counter a particular strategy, right? And so the content that we have is meant to not only inspire people to be better esports athletes, but to actually practically help them do that, right? And the way we do it from an experience perspective is we have consistently held community tournaments with kind of small prize pools, but this gives people the opportunity, not only here in Singapore, but in Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, all parts of the world, to play in these kind of pro-am competitions to practice what it's like to be an esports athlete. As I was mentioning, the Dota 2 major that's coming up here in Singapore, the prize pool is $500,000. That's a lot of money. Now, If you do well, if a team does well in that major, they then get win points to qualify for the international, where the prize pool is over $40 million. Okay, so think about the amount of stress and pressure that a professional esports athlete's facing. And so in order to get kind of more familiar and used to that, you got to be familiar with winning $500 or $1,000 or $10,000 before you can deal with the stress and pressure of trying to play for $500,000 or even $40 million, right? One of the things that makes esports, I think, attractive is that, kind of unlike basketball or the Olympics or football, the athletes just physically look different than us. I mean, they're just physical specimens, Esports athletes tend to have more natural physiques, but trust me, they are very rare individuals. I mean, it is very difficult to become an esports athlete. I tell people, one of my favorite things is, okay, how many people here know Microsoft Excel? And everyone in the room raises their hand. I said, okay, keep your hand up if you know more than 10 shortcut keys. And then maybe half, the room puts their hands down. And then I say, how many of you who have your hands up think you can do more than 60 shortcut keys in a minute? And no one leaves their hand up. And I say to people, your average pro StarCraft 2 player, which is a video game played on a keyboard and mouse, an average pro player can average anywhere between 250 to 300 moves a minute. Okay, that's an incredibly gifted and talented individual. And so, the advice that I tell someone who wants to be an esports athlete, obviously, is I encourage them to go for it. But I also tell them that the odds of becoming an esports athlete, one could argue, might be even harder than trying to become a professional soccer player or basketball player. And so the odds are long in order to get there. Now, what I will also say, though, to people is, just like all other sports, as I've talked about before, if you can't make it as an esports athlete, there are still hundreds of other jobs in esports that you can get involved with. Marketing, league operations, team management, player acquisition, player development. And so, I encourage young people, men and women who are interested in esports, to think broadly around how they think they can participate in this industry, because only a very, very, very few will become professional athletes, just like in any other sport. But if you're passionate and you're enthusiastic enough, you can still be involved in the industry and have a really healthy career. We have our huge, big event coming up March 27th to April 4th. It's the Dota 2 Major in partnership with PGL and STB. This is going to be a massive event. As I said, there's going to be the best teams from China, from Europe, from the United States. It's going to be an incredible showcase of esports talent, and it's going to be here in Singapore. If you simply go to oneesports.gg, you're going to find a lot of content there and how to watch it and how to see it. Please follow us on YouTube and on Twitch and on Facebook and on Twitter for more information. But certainly that's going to be our premier event of the year. It's global. We're expecting over 100 million views for this event. And so we're super excited about it. As I said, it's going to be a very proud moment for One Esports, and we hope it's going to be a very proud moment for Singapore as well.